The fog was thick, rolling in waves over the crossroads, like ghostly fingers stretching toward Evelyn St. James. The moon hung low, a pale, watchful eye behind the swirling clouds. The night air was damp, heavy with the scent of rain, but she barely noticed. She had come too far to turn back now. Her emerald green silk dress clung to her body as the wind howled, lifting her dark curls around her face. Thunder rumbled in the distance, but it was the silence between the cracks that unsettled her most. Then the stillness broke. A shadow slithered through the trees, its form shifting, stretching, becoming something. Slowly, it stepped forward, a cloaked figure, faceless yet utterly present. Its presence pressed against her like unseen hands, ancient and waiting. "You know the price," it murmured, its voice as deep as the grave. "Do you still wish to give him away?" Evelyn swallowed hard, but her decision had been made long before she arrived. James had once been her salvation, a man full of promises. But promises did not fill empty stomachs, nor did love pay debts. He had become an anchor, one she could no longer afford to drag behind her. "Take him," she whispered, her voice steady, unwavering. "I want wealth, I want power, and I never want to struggle again." The figure lifted a skeletal hand, and before her, a silver dagger materialized. The blade glinted, whispering of finality. No words were needed. Evelyn reached out, the cool metal pressing against her palm. She lifted the dagger and pressed the tip to her finger, watching as a single drop of blood welled up before falling onto the dirt below. The ground trembled beneath her feet. A gust of freezing wind rushed past her, sharp as a blade against her skin. The air smelled of iron, of something old and permanent. The deal was sealed. Miles away, in a small, candlelit home, James Street. James gasped in his sleep. His body went rigid, his chest rising once, then never again. His soul was pulled from his body as gently as a whisper. He never woke. Back at the crossroads, Evelyn exhaled, a shuddering breath escaping her lips as something surged through her veins. It was power, something warm, intoxicating. "Enjoy your fortune, Miss St. James. But remember, debts always come due," and with that, he was gone. Evelyn stood there a moment longer, then turned, walking away from the crossroads, toward the life she had been promised. Years passed, and Evelyn St. James became untouchable. Her once threadbare dresses were replaced by silk, her fingers adorned with diamonds that caught the light like trapped fire. She was no longer the woman scraping for a better life. She was the woman who owned it. Her name echoed through high society like the ringing of fine crystal. People whispered, but they never dared to say it to her face. Her home was no longer a crumbling house on the outskirts of town. Now, she lived in a palace of gold and glass, where champagne never stopped flowing and the music never ceased. At every grand event, they gossiped in hushed tones. She was nothing before James died, a woman whispered behind the rim of her wineglass. And now look at her. They say she made a deal with the devil. She doesn't seem to mind, does she? A man smirked, swirling his bourbon. Look at her. She owns this town. Evelyn overheard. She always overheard. But she did not care. She had won. Years passed, and she bore 2 children, Victor and Celeste, as ambitious, cunning, and fearless as their mother. They inherited her power, her sharp wit, and the dark favor that clung to their bloodline like a shadow. Everything they touched turned to gold. But power always has a price. The debt comes due. The mansion had changed. Gone was the laughter, Gone was the roar of endless parties, the glow of golden chandeliers. Now the halls stretched long and cold, the once vibrant home dulled into an eerie silence. Shadows lingered in places where no light should exist, and Evelyn felt it, a presence lurking just beyond her reach. One evening, she sat before her bedroom mirror, the room dim, only the flickering candlelight keeping the darkness at bay. She gazed at her reflection and realized it wasn't hers at all. In the mirror, the shadowy figure from the crossroads smirked. "Did you really think wealth came without a price?" it cooed, voice dripping with amusement. "It is time to pay." A searing pain lanced through Evelyn's chest. Her breath caught, a sharp gasp of realization. Her fingers clawed at her silk nightgown, desperate for something, anything to hold on to. But her body betrayed her. Her strength drained away, like water slipping through her fingers. She stumbled. The diamonds at her throat snapped from their chain, scattering across the marble floor. The mansion doors creaked open. Victor and Celeste stepped into the room. They did not scream. They did not panic. They simply watched. As their mother collapsed, the life fading from her dark, elegant eyes, her children remained still, unshaken. Victor adjusted his cufflinks, his expression unreadable. "She knew this day would come," he murmured. Celeste smirked, taking a slow sip of champagne. "And now, everything she built is ours." A cold wind rushed through the room, flickering out the candles. And in the farthest corner of the grand estate, unseen by human eyes, the shadowy figure watched, waiting, because debts never truly die. The price of forever. Fortune never comes free, and some debts last forever.